Strength 691 taught me what hardcore should be and what it could be.
It was a straight out live demo, and I heard it and I immediately fell in love with Strength.
John Stanley was one of the biggest influences in getting me into playing guitar.
I love the band, since they started, and they were like brothers to me.
I was probably 15 years old and would go to John Stanley's house for basement shows, and this is at a time where I still had to get a ride from my mom to shows.
They had so much energy. I mean, I've never seen anybody move around, especially like Nate, who's just all over the fucking place.
They loved the hardcore scene, but at the same time, the scene kind of didn't accept them like they should have.
I don't think the band got as popular as they deserved, but when people heard them, they went crazy.
Strength 691. Started in 1991, Colonia, New Jersey. Practiced at my house. Kind of was born out of
absolutely horrible sounding bands that nobody, even their mother, wouldn't have liked. And but you know, we came and we grown and we formed into something bigger.
We were really into like a lot of metal at the time, not so much into the hardcore. And
I think every single one of us actually was a metalhead more than a hardcore kid when we all first started.
We kind of got more into like doing punk music, and then we just eventually went, head first into the hardcore, and that's kind of how we ended up starting the band. Strength was Eric's pretty much the concept guy for the band. The melodic writing was me, but the whole concept of doing a hardcore band called Strength, that's really Eric.
And in the summer of '88 to '89, we ended up practicing in John's mom's basement in Colonia.
We started playing. We just started jamming, and it just grew into something bigger. We met Nate, and we kind of took it from there.
In 1990, going into 1991, I was going to high school in Scotts Plains, Fanwood, which is New Jersey, probably about 20 minutes or so from Colonia. Through a mutual friend, she introduced me to a kid that she knew that played drums. So I went to meet these guys. As it turns out, one of the guitar players in the band was Dan Sobin.
Nate was playing in a band with Dan. They hadn't really gotten too far with it. We would definitely had, the first iteration of Strength. We didn't have a bass player.
Nate sounded like he was interested, and I was like, yeah, play with these guys, and they already had some songs together. And basically, Strength was formed from that.
When we got to a point where we were about to start playing shows, we saw a flyer for a metal show in Vintage Vinyl for a metal band called Strength.
So whatever, we were already established, we already, have been performing, had some music out.
In the continuing discussion of it, we talked about, well, when did the band get together? When did we really start? And we realized that it was that June of 1991, hence 691, that we played our first show and really became a band. So we decided to use those numbers, and in changing the name from Strength to something else that would make it different but keep it what we had already started putting the work in on, we changed it to Strength 691.
A year went by, and they were discussing amongst themselves that I think it was time for a second guitar player to beef up their sound.
We started writing more material, playing more shows, went and recorded the first release, like actual real release, which was the Viewpoint cassette. All throughout that time, Dan would come to shows, he'd hang out at John's house.
We were always hanging out. all the time, every day. And we were always goofing around on our instruments, so Dan, really good guitar player, we were playing with him, and sooner or later he just ended up writing some music with us, and we made the pitch to have him join the band full time.
I really wanted Dan to be in Strength. I really wanted him to be a part. I thought he'd be a really great fit.
I played Little League Baseball with Pat. I knew John from high school. I knew Eric already. So it made sense. And I brought a heavier sound to the band in '92.
Even though we had established our sound and we had been playing and doing stuff, it's like Dan just added this whole extra layer to it, which is, that was the point. That was what we wanted. And, it's like at that point, I really feel like that was the, full birth of Strength, 691. We really took it and ran with it.
And that's how it all came together. Well, when it comes to the beginning of Strength, from what we were doing before we did the Viewpoint demo, Eric and I were writing all the music.
I wasn't a great guitarist. I never became a great guitarist. That was one reason that we kind of moved away from that. And I would say the biggest reason why we moved away from that was just when you have kids that want to stage dive and want to do backflips off the stage and want to sing along. And how could you create that feel if you have a guitar in your hand and the mic is on a mic stand? It's impossible.
And once Dan joined the band, it was a whole nother band almost entirely. There was a lot more complexity to the songs.
Dan became more of a principal songwriter in the band.
We were just more critical. Dan's a really good songwriter.
And he just brought a lot more low end.
We were kind of here and he kind of took the bookends, and added the little more melodic and the little more heavy and kind of just made everything fuller.
There was a definite shift, from, where it was me and Eric, then me and Nate, then Dan, me and Nate.
You listen to Strength and you heard so many different influences, different sounds coming through. Yeah, that idea maybe came from Nate, or that was totally Dan Sobin right there. This was all John,
As long as we all get the same feel of what we want.
That was what was kind of cool about the band as well, is there wasn't that ego. You had an idea for an intro or, not even necessarily specific part in a song. You had a musical idea.
Eric actually came to the table with a few riffs when I was in the band for Snail, and actually how Snail was written.
The intro is one of the most recognizable of the Strength songs. Outside of maybe Crushed or Hold On. And it's like the Snail starts with a cool bass part. However, that main bass riff was actually written by Eric.
The way I always wrote songs was I had an idea of a second guitar part in my head. I would play a riff or a phrase and say like, okay, maybe John would do this, and then John would come and say, oh, I have this really awesome riff.
Dan has more of an out-of-the-box perspective when it comes to songwriting. He just does not have, there's songs like, Means to an End or What's Worth the Risk that, there's very little repetition of riffs. The song doesn't, if there weren't lyrics to make it a song, like it just wouldn't make sense a lot, to some degree. I can't explain it any other way than he just had a different approach to songwriting versus Nate or Eric or I, who were really into more into formatting. And Dan does not format what he writes. Very, very seldom.
Very seldom were we playing the same thing. you know, and that's what made us like, we were like lock and key, like this double guitar attack for the Jersey scene. We kind of made a name for ourselves in that. And I think we contributed a lot for that sound at that time. Why Strength ended, why it fizzled out.
It's been asked time and time again why the band broke up.
The communication just wasn't there. Like,
We were kids.
If I had to summarize it, it's just, you know, stupid kids getting older, going through different things, changing. You know, it's just people growing up and changing, you know, and we had literally grown up together and we were all changing.
It seemed like I was resonating at a different frequency at that point, and just, you know, we were all going in different directions. You know, I felt personally that I was evolving out of it. I wanted to get into different things.
If I remember correctly, we were at a practice and, I mean, the tension was palpable. You know, I mean, you could feel it. And I was always kind of like the mediator, you know? I mean, the guys used to always used to fuck with me and called me the defender, because I was always standing up for everybody. I was on everybody's side.
it might have seemed that people were taking a little bit more control than others in this band and kind of forging the direction that we were going into, but at the same time, it's, you know, if you don't say anything, it's your fault too.
Did I play a part in trying to keep things together? I don't think I did. I think that, you know, it wasn't until now, like till we decided to do this reunion, that I even really had to reflect on who I was at the time. I would like to say that I probably contributed heavily to the breakup. You know, I definitely don't think I was the nicest and most considerate person to my bandmates at the time, most specifically Nate. And I'd say second to that would be Eric.
The one thing I guess I could regret, and the one thing that actually broke us up, is that we didn't sit down and talk about everything. And like I said, it sounds just like a relationship, because for the most part it was. I mean, it was a relationship.
To me, it was more about wanting to continue doing what I was doing than necessarily taking a side. So I tried to keep everybody satiated.
When you reach the point that you're actually saying this is your last show, you know, it hurts.
I want to say Eric really said it best in his lyrics. You know, I mean, we were learning as we go along. You know, everything was new. Everything was a challenge, a learning experience.
Before we get going, I'd just like to thank Dan, Nate, and John for doing this. It means a lot to me, because for the 15 minutes that I'm going to be up here, it was the first thing I ever fell in love with, singing for you guys.
You know, with all the emotions, I think, to be honest, unlike some of the members in our band today, you know, when Strength died, my musical career died.
Was it a bad end? Well, I mean, we all came to the agreement that it just wasn't working out. I think JB, you know, Dead Kennedy said it best, you know, harder core than thou for a year or two, then it's time to get a real job.
Dan and I really wanted to play heavier music.
The idea of For the Love of forming when Strength ended was there.
We started For the Love of, and that was like something that was just going to happen no matter what I did, no matter what Nate did, no matter who was friends with who, that was whatever part of the equation. It was all pretty much a foregone conclusion that Dan and I were going more into a metalcore direction, and those guys were not going to be coming with us.
You can hear what was to come with my next project in Means to an End, maybe foreshadowed where Strength would have gotten into had we stayed together.
People have asked us, you know, why won't we play, or we should play, or what have you. And I mean, I think it's just really been more of a wanting to do it for the right reason,
Looking back at our history and I guess our demise.
Other than the 2 times that we have gotten together to play on the same stage, this particular one, Nate felt was a good time because it was right around the 20th anniversary that we should just do it. We've been talking about doing it.
I immediately jumped on the idea of doing a 20-year anniversary reunion.
Actually literally is 20 years to the date, and we threw around the idea that it can actually be done.
Playing this 20-year anniversary, I feel that we're all more mature and we could speak our minds and let our thoughts be said, where when we were younger you don't realize that.
The name of this tape is, well, it's called Stupid Shit.
It was great that I got the phone call that the rest of the other guys want to do this.
Everything kind of fell together nicely, so pretty happy about it.
I actually personally need it at this time. It's good. It's also good closure, almost too. And who knows what we're going to do after this.
While looking at the calendar and realizing, hey, it's 2011, so this June is 6/11, 20 years after 6/91. What better time to say, let's do it, I mean, people want to see us, and it'll be a lot of fun to just hang out and jam these songs again. So, we decided that with it being specific about it being our 20th anniversary, we agreed to do it.
Blisters, chunks.
It was like $245 for all of this. That would have been awesome.
I haven't had blisters on these fingers in probably close to 15 years.
People have definitely asked, given the fact that we're doing this reunion, whether or not we'll play more shows, whether we'll write new music, re-record stuff that wasn't released, or, re-record some of the songs, like what the future holds. And honestly, I can't tell you. I don't know.
Would I ever consider writing another Strength record?
It would be great. It would be one of the greatest things, that I would love to see happen.
Presently, I absolutely would come back together with the guys in Strength and write some new music.
If people were into it and it felt right and the quality was there, there's no reason why I would say no.
Really, only time will tell if that's what happens.
We still have a lot of music in us, and a lot that we've learned through the years that we could put into our music.
The music wasn't just, here's this note that we're playing, here's this word that's being sung. It was the culmination of everything, of where we were at in our life, and what the world was like, and what the hardcore scene was like, and the places we went, and the things we saw, and the people we met, I mean, all of that made the songs what they were.